Appreciate that. This is the Oregon Department of Forestry, and due to public health concerns and a variety of other things, we're broadcasting from remote locations using this technology that brings us together. My name is Paul Clements. I work for the Private Forest Division, the Salem headquarters of the Oregon Department of Forestry. I deal with monitoring of compliance with forest practices and training and moving information. And we're here today on behalf of the Public Affairs group, and we're going to talk for the next hour about some upcoming changes to standards for helicopter applications of pesticides on forest lands. I want to welcome everybody. Got my welcome mat here. Thank you for your interest, and we're gonna have a schedule here, and this is what we're doing. We're welcoming and introducing ourselves. I'd like to introduce the panelists that are here with me today. If you want to say who you are, I think that'd be better than me doing it.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jay Walters, Forest Practices Field Coordinator out of the ODF Salem office on temporary assignment on the Senate Bill 1602 implementation team.
Hey everyone, my name is Brooke Burgess, and I'm currently helping with implementing the Senate Bill 1602.
Good afternoon, my name is Josh Bernard, and I am the project lead for Senate Bill 1602 implementation.
Well, thanks, folks. And as you heard, everybody said Senate Bill 1602. And we're going to hear about that now. Here's one of the things, a couple of housekeeping items. If you have questions, there's a question and answer function in the webinar program we're using today. And we found that if people send their questions into the chat rather than question and answers, they don't distribute quite so well. So we'd be glad to take your questions in the question and answer folder there. And we're going to use a couple of videos here to share some information, and then we're going to have a chance for active questions. And I'd like to get ready to get started with that first one right now. If you would, please, Brooke, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and see if you can get us going.
Hello, and welcome to the Oregon Department of Forestry. I'm Deputy State Forester Lena Tucker, and like many of you, I love getting out to enjoy the many benefits our forests provide, such as fish and wildlife habitat, clean air and water, beauty, relaxation, and so many more. There are many different forest landowners in Oregon, and the state owns some forest, the federal government owns some forest, companies own some, and so do private citizens. The Oregon Department of Forestry manages state-owned forests, fights wildfire as the state's largest fire department, and regulates private forestry activity as it administers Oregon's Forest Practices Act. Our department does all of these things to protect, manage, and promote stewardship of Oregon's forests to enhance environmental, economic, and community sustainability. Thank you, and hope you enjoy Oregon's forest.
Hello, I'm Kyle Abraham. My team and I administer the Oregon Forest Practices Act and rules. These laws are developed by either the state legislature or Oregon Board of Forestry, sometimes both. Today we are reviewing some of these laws. The department's approach to administering the laws is to help people know the laws and do the right thing up front. We use a multi-tiered approach: engineer, educate, and enforce, using science and engineering to develop the laws is ideal for forest management. Once a law is in place, our team educates staff, the regulated community, and the public for high compliance rates. Then, if needed, we can enforce the laws with the appropriate penalties. Most people prefer compliance without enforcement. In June 2020, the Oregon legislature passed Senate Bill 1602, and the governor signed it into law. Both conservation and timber industry groups supported the bill. These groups will continue to discuss, develop, and recommend changes to the Oregon Forest Practices Act. The department supports this approach. The diverse views and productive discussions can help improve forestry laws while addressing concerns for responsibly managing forests. The department and board look forward to receiving the recommendations. Parts of the law go into effect at different times. The law changes some of Oregon's non-federal forest land protections. For instance, the law increases buffers around homes, schools, water intakes, and some streams for helicopters spraying pesticides. This part of the law starts on January 1st, 2021. The buffers are at least 75 feet from streams with fish or domestic use, 50 feet from other streams with surface water present, 300 feet from a school or inhabited dwelling, and 300 feet from a qualifying water intake. The law includes the Siskiyou region in the rules for protecting salmon, steelhead, and bull trout streams. This part of the law starts on January 1st, 2021. The agency must develop its e-notification system to improve communication among helicopter pesticide sprayers, neighbors, and water users. The law provides funds for developing the system. It will likely take about a year to complete this work. The communications from a helicopter pesticide applicator to the department and qualifying registrants must include 4 parts. First, a proposed spray, which includes the location, pesticides likely to be used, a 90-day window for applying those pesticides, and the notifier's email, address, and phone number. Second, the 90-day time available to spray. Third, the notice by 7 p.m. the night before the planned spray, which we call the pending spray. Fourth, the spray is either complete or incomplete. The applicators must also notify water users and neighbors before spraying. Qualifying water users and neighbors must be notified about the spray timing. They will receive the first message when there is a proposed spray. Now let's take a look at who qualifies and how to receive these messages. Neighbors and water users must sign up to receive these notices. The neighbors and water users who can sign up are those within 1 mile of the proposed spray. They will receive notices by email or text message about the proposed 90-day window and the night before the flights. This part of the law will start between July 2021 and June 2022. Next, let's turn to the penalties. Of course, it's better for everyone and the protected natural resources if there aren't violations. However, if people do violate these laws, there are fines for failing to submit spray plans and notifying the department and neighbors. There are also fines for people who interfere with the spray applications. Please know that the laws did not change for pesticides sprayed by ground, fixed wing, or the use of drones. The final part of Senate Bill 1602 is an opportunity for further discussion about how to improve Oregon's Forest Practices Act. In the coming months, the governor's office will mediate talks among the conservation and timber industry groups. The groups jointly will develop and recommend changes to forestry laws, and this work should be done by late 2022. Thank you for your interest in these forestry laws and hope you continue to enjoy Oregon's forests.
And that was Kyle Abraham. He's the chief of the Private Forest Division. And as he noted, Senate Bill 1602 asks a good bit of us that will be taking place over time. And here today, we're only here to really talk about what's going to take place on the 1st of January. We have another video that speaks in detail about those changes. Kyle talked more about the notification system and our FERN system, which is, we're actively engaged right now in the modifications it's going to take to meet the demands of that. But effective January 1st, there are going to be some specific changes, and we'd like to share a little video with you now that describes what those are.
Hello, I'm Mike Odenthal with the Oregon Department of Agriculture. The Oregon Department of Agriculture is responsible for administering the Oregon Pesticide Control Act. This law, along with federal pesticide law, regulates all pesticide use, distribution, and formulation. And remember, pesticides include fungicides, insecticides, rodenticides, herbicides, and antimicrobials. This comprehensive group of laws regulates all pesticide use, including home and garden, farm and forest, and all the other uses. The labels on the pesticide containers explain how to use those products. Remember, the label is the law. People who follow the label instructions are following state and federal laws. The state of Oregon does have additional laws for proper use. The state licenses and offers annual training for professional pesticide applicators and training materials like this video. The goal is to help pesticide users understand the laws so they can use these products safely and responsibly. Pesticides are used every day all around us. People apply pesticide products using spray bottles, backpack sprayers, and sometimes aircraft. Forest managers will sometimes use pesticides to control weeds so their seedlings may flourish and grow into strong, healthy forests. Today we're discussing rules for helicopter pesticide spray applications. These are typically done in recently harvested areas with newly planted trees. The Oregon Department of Agriculture works with the Oregon Department of Forestry to regulate this pesticide use and to protect our natural resources.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Ward with the Oregon Department of Forestry. My job is to administer Oregon's Forest Practices Act, which is intended to protect natural resources and provide for responsible logging and forest management. The forestry laws require landowners to successfully plant new forests after a harvest. Some landowners use helicopters to apply pesticides to control weeds so the trees can grow. As of January 1st, 2021, the forestry laws include new buffers around schools and streams. These laws apply to helicopter pesticide use, not fertilizer use. Helicopter pesticide applicators must not directly apply herbicides or other pesticides within 300 feet of a school's campus or an inhabited dwelling, like a home. School here means Head Start, private or public school for any K-12 program, college or university, Oregon School for the Deaf, Oregon Youth Authority residential academies, and educational service districts. Within the greater of 75 feet, or the full width of the riparian management area, or RMA, of a F or D stream, within 50 feet of a type N stream where the surface water is present. The spray buffers are horizontal distances. Riparian management areas are measured in slope distances. Bottom line, the buffer distance is whichever is further from the water. Before spraying any pesticides, a notification of operations must be submitted to the Oregon Department of Forestry. The notification must include a map showing water resources. Now, let's take a closer look at each buffer requirement. First, let's look at a school adjacent to a newly planted forest. When treating the area, the pilot must leave a 300-foot buffer between the school's campus and the spray area. For inhabited dwellings like homes, and for qualifying water intake points, the pilot must also leave a 300-foot buffer. Qualifying water intake points are those recorded in the Oregon Department of Forestry's e-notification system. Forestry works closely with the Oregon Water Resources Department and the public to update the qualifying water intake points. Now let's take a look at the other ways the laws protect water quality. These laws require buffers along streams. There are 2 stream buffer distances. The setback distance from type F or fish bearing and type D or domestic use streams must be the greater distance of either 75 feet or the required vegetated buffer. The required vegetated buffer is sometimes called the riparian management area, or RMA. An RMA is an area along streams and other bodies of water where trees and shrubs must be retained and special management practices are required to protect water quality and fish and wildlife habitat. The second stream buffer distance is for type N streams, which do not have fish or domestic use. The pilot must determine if surface water is present before the application. If surface water is present, pesticides may not be applied within 50 feet of the high water line of the type N stream. The 50-foot buffer is required downstream of any surface water. The last part of this law addresses interference with and memorializing the work. The law prohibits interference with these pesticide applications. If a person interferes with one of these operations, they can be fined up to $5,000. The law also allows for a person to video or photograph a helicopter application from a place where they have the right to be present, as long as it does not interfere. If you have any questions, please contact your local stewardship forester. Thank you for your interest in the Oregon Forest Practices Act.
Hello, my name is Ted, and I am with the Pesticide Analytical and Response Center. Did you know that no other state coordinates pesticide investigations like Oregon? The Pesticide Analytical and Response Center, or PARC, coordinates pesticide investigations with many different state agencies, including the Oregon Occupational Safety and Health Administration, the Oregon Department of Agriculture, and the Oregon Department of Forestry. If citizens have concerns that pesticide use has negatively impacted people, animals, or the environment, they may report these concerns 24 hours a day by dialing 211. Specialists at 211 Info will take your information and forward that information to PARC. And a PARC member agency will follow up with you within 1 business day. Thank you for your time.
All right. And those productions are designed to give the basic information about the upcoming changes in the rules. One of the things that's begun to take place since we got together is some questions have come across the counter. And if it's all right with my fellow panelists here, I think I'd like to share those with the folks. First is, are these videos now available on the ODF YouTube site? And I do not think they're available today, but I think the intent is that they will be soon.
Hey, Paul,
yes?
I uploaded them last night, so they are available on our
see, there you go. Last night. Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you.
So you could go to our YouTube site and see these videos. And there's also videos about the SSBT stream protection rules that Senate Bill 1602 extended to the Siskiyou georegion as well. Is that correct? Those are there. They have been there since 2017. So to answer the question, yes, they are there. Another question was, does this apply to churches? And the answer was provided. Jay, you got that?
Yes, I entered the answer in the Q&A there, but yes, if the church operates a private school, then the church's school facility would fall under the definition of a school per the Senate Bill 1602.
But 1602 does not mention churches discreetly though, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right, Paul, but it does mention schools, both public and private.
Correct. And another question is, does the buffer distance affect school bus stops? And I believe the answer is no. The statute does not mention school bus stops. It's about the grounds and campus of a school.
Yes.
And then the last question is, when will the notification system be live? And as Kyle Abraham pointed out, there's a lot of work to get that done. I believe Senate Bill 1602 specifies that it should be in place by July of 2022, if I'm not mistaken. But it's our goal to get it done before, and I could defer to Josh Bernard if you'd like on that. Josh, you care to speak to that?
Thanks, Paul. The timeline set forth in the bill is the earliest it could be in place is July 1st of 2021, but it has to be in place by June 30th of 2022.
And here's a question that we got the other day. How about university arboretums and forests like McDonald Dunn? Are they considered university property and subject to the 300-foot buffer standard? And Jay, I'll ask this of you.
Sure. Thanks, Paul. No, they would not be included if they are separate pieces of land, such as MacDunn Forest. So the Senate bill shines a pretty bright light on the campus of the school facilities, and the extended facilities such as MacDunn. I'm not familiar with the other one that was mentioned in the question, but those would not be considered school campuses.
Yeah, we got a lot of questions on this in a previous presentation internally, and here a fellow brings up the Napa School District that has a big tract of land that did some logging, and I believe it's about the campus of the school buildings. And then someone says, how do these buffers around homes and schools compare to those in Washington and other states? That's all other states have different standards. I don't know what Washington requires, I'm sorry. I do know what other states, I know I'm familiar with some other states that don't have, they refer to the label in many instances. And I will, I think I'm gonna let that be a self-study question. We'll be checking on standards, and I can't answer that for you right now. Another thing that we had hoped to do is provide a little more detail in some of the concepts that were put out there in the videos. And Jay has a PowerPoint, I believe, of a few slides that offers some diagrams that might enable you to understand how these things are to be applied on the ground. And Jay, can you help us with that?
I can. Okay, you should all be seeing Senate Bill 1602 buffers for helicopter pesticide spray screen. Am I right about that?
Looking good.
Awesome. Well, hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Glad that you are here. Again, I'm Jay Walters, Forest Practices Field Coordinator out of Salem. So I'm going to take a little bit deeper dive into some of the elements of Senate Bill 1602's spray buffers, kind of tagging along with the last video that we just watched. So let's get started. Okay, as we heard in the video, there are new spray buffers for, there are new spray buffers that go into effect at various times, most of them on January 1st of 2021. The one exception is the helicopter spray buffers around water intakes, which go into effect when the Fern's communication technology is prepared as early as this summer, perhaps a little bit later. At any rate, these new buffers apply to herbicides and all other pesticides applied by helicopter. That's helicopter specifically. It wouldn't apply to any applications by fixed wing or by drones. As we heard in the video, for type F and type D streams, the helicopter spray buffer is the wider of 75 feet or the RMA width, such as a 100-foot RMA for a large fish stream. Keep in mind that all of the buffers in the chemical division of the forest practice rules are measured in horizontal distance as opposed to RMAs, which are measured in slope distance. So just keep that in mind. The most protective of the two buffers is what applies. Type N streams, they receive a 50-foot horizontal buffer when those type N streams have surface water at the time of the application. And the way that's looked at is any surface water within the spray unit downstream of that surface water would be protected with the 50-foot buffer on each side of the stream. Again, these are horizontal distance buffers. And all these stream buffers take effect January 1st of 2021. Looking through my notes here to see if I'm missing anything else I think I need to tell you. A little bit of a fringe thought here, and that is, current rules for aerial applications are for 60-foot buffers for all applications of pesticides except for fungicides and non-biological insecticides, which have a 300-foot buffer. Again, this is the current rules. So the 75-foot or greater will apply to all applications of pesticides except for fungicides and non-biological insecticides. Will retain the more protective 300-foot buffer presently in rule. Okay, helicopter spray buffers around water intakes. As noted in the video, those spray buffers will be 300 feet. A little asterisk there. The asterisk means that the 300-foot buffer applies when the spray unit and the water intake, or the point of diversion, are in the same 6th level watershed. So if the spray unit is on one side of the ridge that defines a 6th level watershed, and the POD is on the other side of the ridge, then the 300-foot buffer would not apply. A little bit of nomenclature, 6th level watershed is also known as a HUC 12, hydrologic unit code, if that's more meaningful to you than a 6th level watershed. These 300-foot buffers apply to water uses qualifying for a spray buffer. And those water uses are all defined nicely in Senate Bill 1602. And they include domestic use, watering up to a ½ an acre of lawn or non-commercial garden, livestock watering, and also community water systems when that water use is for any of those above uses that I mentioned, domestic, watering lawns or non-commercial gardens, livestock watering. It also includes commercial and industrial use of those community water systems. There will be receiving water intake points from 2 different sources. We're starting to work really closely with the Oregon Water Resources Department and understanding how their system works, and we'll be pulling in water intakes, meeting these water uses qualifying for a spray buffer, and pulling those into the system, again, as soon as the Ferns communication technology is ready. And then also you heard a little bit about citizens being able to register within Ferns to receive communications about upcoming helicopter sprays within 1 mile of their tax lot or their water intake. So those Ferns registrants, as we're calling them, besides receiving the communications from Ferns about upcoming sprays, their water systems, their water intakes will also be protected by the 300-foot buffer. And again, this all takes effect statewide when Ferns is ready. Okay, schools and dwellings. These are 300-foot buffers, similar, the same as the water intakes. And again, all horizontal distance. These apply to schools and inhabited dwellings. Schools are defined in the Senate bill with a pretty broad net. And we saw and heard in the video last the different schools that qualify for quote unquote schools in the Senate bill. Inhabited dwellings, those are structures where people live. The intent there, kind of the guiding principle is that a dwelling, is a structure, which is a temporary or a permanent building that's attached to real property, and where a reasonable person would say that somebody lives. The dwelling doesn't include, it includes just the structure itself. It doesn't include outbuildings or yard areas or other land associated with the structure. It's just the structure. So inhabited dwellings are homes such as where most of us live. Inhabited dwelling could be a yurt. An inhabited dwelling is not a motorhome that parks along the side of the road. It is not a tent in a hunter's camp. But yeah, think of a home. That's the primary dwelling that we're talking about here. The Senate bill talks about. As far as measuring the 300-foot buffer for a dwelling structure, that's from the edge of the structure itself. A little bit different for a school. That 300-foot buffer starts on the boundary of the school campus tax lot. So in this example here, this is the tax lot for the school. So the outer boundary of the school tax lot, campus, that's where the 300-foot buffer starts. The landowner or the school board who initiated the helicopter spray, they may waive that 300-foot buffer. However, they may not waive the 60-foot spray buffer that's presently in statute. What was that? ORS 527.672 went into effect on January 1st of 2016. The landowner school board would not be able to waive that 0 to 60-foot no spray buffer around their school or inhabited dwelling. Looking again here at my notes. Yep, and these school and dwelling protections take effect January 1st, 2021. Okay, lastly, interference with the helicopter spray. This was also mentioned in the video. So interference with a helicopter application is a violation. The Senate bill defines what interference is, and I've included part of that text here. Interference is an action that impedes a pesticide application by a helicopter, but it does not include taking photos, capturing video or audio from a place where a person has a legal right to be, such as public land or their own property, of course. Interference also excludes activities protected under the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And this interference element took effect the date that the Senate bill was signed, which was July 7th of 2020. Okay, that was the end of the extra detail that we wanted to share with you. Paul, I'll kick it back to you.
Well, don't go away.
Okay.
Josh and Jay, I thank you for being here, but while you were sharing those slides, the phone's been ringing and the questions have come in, and if you'd like to take a breath, I'll send a few your way. And if you'll allow me to do so, I will, I'll try to sort them out and make sure that we get them. And here's one.
Okay.
if Josh, if I may call on you, and they want to know, when will the notification system be live?
Thanks, Paul. That is a good question. As noted when we started the presentation, the bill sets, Senate Bill 1602 sets the time frame of being between July 1st of 2021 and July 30th of 2022. We are currently working with a contractor to see what it will take to build this functionality. I do not have a projected end date within that time frame, and it will ultimately be us working with the DAS CIO office to determine when it is ready for release to the public. So we are working through that process, but it will be sometime within that time frame.
Thank you. Here's a question for program administration about who's going to make the call on what's a school campus. Is it going to be tax lots or a stewardship forester or some other person? And then the example was given, I think, of anyway, who's gonna answer that question?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that one, Paul. So the school, quote unquote, would be the outer boundary of the tax lot or tax lots, plural, that the school sets upon. So one school that comes to mind is a school I'm familiar with from my days in Roseburg, Eastwood Elementary. It's a single block of, oh golly, about 40 plus acres, as I recall. Used to be the site of the Douglas County Fair. It includes, I don't know, maybe 5+ acres of school buildings, playgrounds, you know, typical facilities you think of with a school. But also on that same single tax lot, same contiguous chunk of property is several different natural habitats the school uses for outdoor education purposes. And because that extra area, the non-building area of the school campus is all part of that one contiguous block, that whole facility, that 40+ acre facility, is considered the school campus, and the outer boundary of which is where the 300-foot buffer starts.
Thank you.
Hey Jay, hold on one sec, Paul. Can you stop screen sharing, Jay? There, we've had a couple of requests in the chat for that.
Oh, okay, sure. I was keeping it on there in case we wanted to refer back to any of the diagrams.
Okay, here's a question about the surface water at the time of application.
Okay.
And the question is, are buffers required downstream of ponds with water, but no water flowing out of the pond at the time of application? And that's about ponds, and I think the statute speaks about streams. And so the question doesn't ask about the stream below the pond. It talks about, we don't know, is the water flowing out of the pond into a stream? I don't know.
But you're right, Paul. The Senate bill speaks directly to streams, but not to ponds. But current forest practice rules do address areas of standing water greater than 1/4 acre of standing water, and the 60-foot buffer that presently applies to those areas of standing water would continue to apply. And then the 75-foot buffer per Senate Bill 1602 would apply to any standing water in a stream, you know, whether it's flowing out of a pond or otherwise. But yeah, the key there is surface water at the time of application in a type N stream. That would invoke the 50-foot no direct spray buffer on each side of that stream.
Thank you. The question and answer hotline is it's buzzing here. I hope you're okay with this. Here we go. Can an individual register a water intake for protection if the intake and right are legally established with the Oregon Water Resources Department. And there's another question about that. I'll dig around, but I think it really is, can you address the method of and registering those water intakes, but with the caveat that we really came today to talk about what takes place on the 1st of January. And all of this water intake and notification mechanism is in development, and I guarantee you we'll be back with another one of these webinar things when that time comes. But I think I can answer that. If you have a legal water right with Oregon Water Resources Department, then it would comply for recognition in the program that we're putting together. In fact, there are some uses that are not domestic water, but still recognized as water withdrawal permits that are also going to be subject to recognition there. And then, here, yes, sir.
I'd like to tag on to what you just said there. So yeah, those legal water rights from OWRD, as long as they are for a water use qualifying for a spray buffer, you know, the list of water uses that we looked at on the PowerPoint slide there. And when those points of diversion, those water intakes are mapped sufficiently for ODF to administer the spray buffers. And we're just now starting down that road of working with OWRD to figure all that part out. But they do have, gosh, what are they called? Feature quality codes associated with each water intake point in their system. And we're hoping that we can use those feature quality codes to help us figure out the mapped accurately enough part of that. So lots to be learned, and we're just starting to take our deep dive there with OWRD.
Let's see here. I think we answered Luke's question about the buffers around the edge of the tax lot like schools. Oh, do the 300-foot buffers around homes and dwellings start at the edge of the tax lots like schools? Or is it from the dwelling itself?
It is from the dwelling itself. So yep, a distinction there between schools and inhabited dwellings. The inhabited dwelling 300-foot buffer starts at the outer edge of the structure itself, you know, the home itself, not any attached or, sorry, not any associated outbuildings. And then for schools, it's the outer edge of the campus tax lot.
Very well. Can you speak to people that would like to waive the requirement of the statute with respect to applications closer than 300 feet to their house? Here's one person that's got a Scotch room in the unit next door, and they'd like to have that treatment come on up to the edge of their land to take care of the Scotch broom. Can they legally do that? Can they waive that requirement?
The folks who can waive that requirement are the folks who initiated the spray themselves. So the situation that I heard you describe there, Paul, the landowner who would be receiving the 300-foot buffer, they would not be able to waive the 300-foot buffer that would need to be protected by the applicator on the adjoining property.
I see. So there's nothing that would prevent ground-based work or anything like that. But this, again, is about helicopter applications and standards for setbacks.
Yep, nice qualification there with the ground-based.
We've got a couple of questions about our current notification system and the continuations and ongoing notifications we have now. If someone's renewing a notification for next year, or say they have a 2020 notification that's open and they'd like to renew it because they're not done yet, do they need to add language or amend the notification in any way to reflect the changes for type N protection, or possibly redraw their map, or anything like that? In their notification, say it's all type N streams and there's no RMA, they would have, we will hope they would have answered the question if there was water within 100 feet. And if that were yes or no, we'd hope that they would know that those type N streams were there. I don't know that there's anything in the statute that requires any kind of written plan or prior recognition of the resources other than our current notification process. It's just it's a rule, it's a law you have to obey.
Yep, that's right, Paul. So those 50-foot spray buffers on each side of the type N streams with surface water, those would take effect would be effective January 1st for those situations that you just described.
So did we get to the one about who's gonna do the definition of a school campus, tax law, stewardships or others, stewardship foresters or other? I think we did that. Yep.
That one.
Okay. So I'm keeping track. I don't want all, and the numbers keep going up. Let's see here. We got that one. I'm saving a couple here. Here we have a couple about compliance. And this is like, what do we talk about? Engineering, education, and enforcement. And we have a couple of questions about how we're going to determine compliance with the rule. Or it's not a rule, it's actually a statute. And I've read it about 17 times, but my memory serves me, it says it's direct application. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. It's the direct application of pesticides that's prohibited by the Senate bill. And that's consistent with current rule as well.
And that's been our standard for a long time. And so I'm gonna answer that question shortly and just say we're going to determine compliance with these buffers the way we've determined compliance with buffers in the past, and that starts with information gathering and goes from there. So there's really nothing different about metrics for success other than articulation of a different distance. Would you say that's fair to say?
Yeah, I would say that's fair to say. The other thing I would add to that is, it's a no direct spray buffer, so that recognizes that pesticides in a lesser concentration are okay inside that buffer. But yes, the expectation is not at the same rate as within the targeted part of the unit. That said, there is a rule that says that the vegetation that's required by the water protection rules, so RMAs, the understory vegetation, the treed vegetation, everything that's required to be retained during a harvest, those elements are protected and that they can't be damaged even at a lesser concentration than herbicide, any other pesticide inside the spray unit.
Right. And so in that regard, there's nothing changing with respect to the metrics for compliance, except the area in which the question might be asked.
Right.
How about livestock? If if livestock are using streams on the property, do all the streams qualify for the 300-foot buffer? I'm not sure it is a 300-foot buffer. I think it might be the greater of 75 feet or whatever protection standards apply. But the presence or absence of livestock are not addressed in the statute at all, in my understanding. Now, a farmer might have a chance later on to come and say that they have a water withdrawal, a water chance that they use, and it warrants recognition as a point of diversion or water withdrawal point. That again doesn't take place on the 1st of January, and those questions about the subsequent part of this effort are valid, but we may not have as good an answer for you now as we would after a while. Here's a question about, will the new rule use the current definition of a stream as a waterway with an incised channel? And I will say yes. All other rules apply, as you say. Division 600 And the front of your forest practices book has a definition of a stream, and we apply that definition. It's all throughout the Forest Practice Act administration, and that the statute didn't provide a new definition of a stream, so we're going to keep using the one that we've used before. Water use here's back to the livestock. Water use qualifying for spray buffer says for livestock watering. So that again, that's a good thinking. You're asking a question about the part of the program that isn't going to take place on January 1st. But it is a good question because we need to think about these things. And if you water your livestock over a 700-foot stretch of stream bank, does that then create that point of diversion at that scale? Or do you have to identify a point on Earth? And we'll get to that. But Patrick, thank you. And you're adding to our suite of questions to answer. Let's see, how are we doing here? We don't need to add language to address type in for renewals, but you do need to follow the rules. And the legal water right is a good example of something. You know, one of the things out in the landscape that there are people using, in Southern Oregon, we heard about people using water in a manner for which they don't have permission, who may want to be extended this protection. And I think we all know of folks in the country who might have a house with a deeded water right that's not recognized in a withdrawal permit. And one of the things the Department of Water Resources is talking about is they have a long list of water withdrawal permits that may or may not exist in reality. And as we create a database that's a spatially oriented thing, some ground truthing may have to be done to make sure that that database is correct. And let's see here. We got the ponds and ponds surface water done. And here's a question: does this notification system change anything with the fern subscriber process? And there are people who subscribe to entire counties or even the whole state. Josh, you want to talk to that?
This does not change anything for the subscriber process. This will be a subset, if you want to think about it like that, of subscribers, but the regular subscriber process will still exist as it functions today.
Okay, I think we're getting pretty close to, it says I've got 4 of them open. And how about this? Why does it take so long to create the real-time notice piece? Is this all new technology, or does any other agency or state require this sort of real-time notice? How about you, Josh?
Thanks, Paul. So yes, this it does take us a little while to build this in. There are a couple pieces with this. This is completely new technology to be able to provide the notice by 7 p.m. the day before. It also revises our typical notification of operations process for helicopter pesticide applications. So typically someone can notify for something on a calendar basis. Say they can notify January 1 for timber harvesting or other things throughout the year. This will require helicopter pesticide applicators to notify a 90-day window. If it's not done within that window, they can submit a new notice for those applications. So there's several new steps just functionally to complete it. But in addition to that, there's more than one communication loop in here for qualified registrants for this process. So not only will they get information at the start of a notification similar to a current subscriber, but then there's other defined timelines within the bill, such as the evening before at 7 p.m., they will get an email message or a text message with the information related to these operations. And that could occur from more than once, depending on how operationally those sprays go. So if a spray isn't complete that day and they want to go again the next day, they got to resend those notices. So it's quite quite a heavy build in that sense in terms of opening up that communication loop. It also will provide for non-department messages to go between timber owners, operators, and landowners to those registrants that would qualify for information on a particular spray operation. So several communication pieces. I'm not aware of any other system like this. And so for us, this is kind of a one-of-a-kind thing, and it's kind of a new template. So it's completely brand new, and we're working through it as quickly as possible.
Thank you. And here's a question. I think we got to it with our discussion of ponds, but buffers around seeps and springs where water is present, but there are no defined beds. There's not a stream. Seeps and springs, but no stream. They're not listed in the statute. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. And we're got a couple more. And will the old subscribers get the same notification of each update from the applicator? And I think Josh had told you that the answer to that is no. It's a subset of the subscriber process, and it's going to include and require extra effort on the part of the people that are within the right distance, and then extra effort on the part of the applicator too. And then here's one. Examples of how the First Amendment will allow give examples of how the First Amendment will allow interference. And I'd refer you to the statute. Interference is defined in the statute, and it's considered a civil offense. And the First Amendment is, I think, listed in the statute as well, but in a different paragraph about rights people have to memorialize, film, take pictures, draw sketches, or as you will, but to do your memorialization of a helicopter pesticide application on forest land, one would need to be taking that action from a place for which they have are legally able to do so. So interference and memorialization are both considered in the statute, and they're incongruent, if you will. So, and then here I think I'm down to about the last one. Here we go. Here's a new one. During site operations, we could work from sunrise to sunset. With this said, and we're out of cell coverage and working past 7 p.m., how does that work? We're going to let that question ride. We're not solving that today. It's not coming on the 1st of January. There's some folks working every week right now to figure out that question. And I don't know if that's in the hopper for the working group about what do you do when there's no cell coverage, or and then there could be people that are qualified to receive the notifications who don't have internet capability, and I don't know how that's going to work either. And so when someone asks, why does it take a while to figure this out, it's because when you start building one of these systems, all manner of nuances and anomalies float up that you have to consider, just like this question here. And here we go. This is one about, here's one about interference. If someone blocks a public road prohibiting the spray equipment, is that considered a violation of interference? Well, I would think it could be. The point is about legal presence. And I'll let another thing to take home from this is the Oregon Department of Forestry is not going to be the regulating authority about what interference is or isn't. That's going to be incumbent on the applicator and very likely the Sheriff's Department. But the legislature felt the need to articulate in statute the fact that those actions do occur and they're concerned about them. And here's the last question, I guess. Where will you be posting this recorded training and Zoom call at the end? And Brooke, I think this will be recorded. Is that correct? It has been recorded.
That's right. Yep, we have recorded this meeting, and I do believe we'll post it on our ODF page and also on YouTube. Betty can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that was my reading on it.
Okay, and Charlie asked earlier if the videos we saw were on the YouTube site, and they are. And we'll ask our public affairs about where this will get placed, the recordings of these meetings. Is that fair to say? And I think we answered the questions, 36 of them. Is there anybody out there in the audience that has wants to have one more question before we go? Very well. It's certainly nice to, it's keen to know that people care as much as they do. And we appreciate your interest in the forest and the natural world and the community that we all share. And we'd encourage you to stay in touch. And with that, unless anybody else has anything more, we'll be closing now and look forward to our next get together. Thank you very much.
Thanks.